Welcome to another edition of Just Facts Combat Quick Picks. This week, we have an exciting card with Pantoja defending his belt against an all-time great, and Shavkat fighting Ian Gary, which, in my opinion, is the best fight on the card. But without further ado, let's jump into it, starting with the first fight in the heavyweight division between Kennedy Nzechukwu and Lukasz Brzeski. My prediction for this fight is Nzechukwu to get his hand raised and make quick work of Brzeski. In my opinion, Brzeski doesn't belong in the UFC. He has a questionable chin and poor defense, both striking and grappling. Once Kennedy finds his range, he'll begin landing power shots and will likely put Brzeski down. I predict a finish, and I'd be both amazed and amused if Nzechukwu fails to finish him and the fight goes to a decision. Guida v Chase Hooper. This is yet another case of an aging fighter forced to keep competing because the UFC underpaid him to the point he can't retire. We've seen this happen repeatedly, and it feels like Dana White would rather die than fairly pay fighters, claiming they'd get lazy if compensated well. Ironically, he's a billionaire still working hard at exploiting fighters. You really can't make this up. For the fight, I predict Chase Hooper will capitalize on his advantage and finish Guida within the distance. Guida may pose challenges early with his unpredictable style, but he also has habits that Hooper can exploit. Once Hooper finds his timing, I see him dominating, whether on the feet or the ground. Guida's experience might help him avoid submissions, but I can also see Hooper finishing with strikes. My call: Hooper stops Guida inside the distance. Chiesa vs Max Griffin. I'm leaning toward Max Griffin for this fight. While neither is a standout striker, Griffin is more comfortable and effective on the feet, carrying more power in his strikes. A TKO win for Griffin is possible, as Chiesa's boxing, though improved, remains one-dimensional. Chiesa will likely rely on his wrestling to exhaust Griffin, who has struggled with cardio in later rounds. However, Griffin's solid takedown defense could keep the fight standing, where he has the edge. If Chiesa can wear Griffin down, he might find success, but I think Griffin outlasts him for the win. This fight promises to be a banger, unlike the uninspiring Kron Gracie vs Bryce Mitchell matchup. My prediction? Josha Van gets his hand raised. In a high-paced striking bout, I favor Van as the more technical striker with better defense in the pocket. Durden's openings could leave him vulnerable to a counter uppercut or hook, potentially leading to a KO. While Durden could try a grappling-heavy game plan, Van's solid takedown defense will make it tough. Durden's jab and reach could give him an edge standing, but overall, Van's precision and technique make him my pick for a TKO victory. A decision win wouldn't be surprising, though. Weidman vs Eryk Anders. Hopefully, this fight finally happens. It's been listed for weeks. Since I've already discussed it, I'll keep it brief. If Anders is 100% healthy, I expect him to win. Unfortunately, Weidman's leg injuries have permanently affected his performance. While I admire his determination, at 40, continuing to fight with such a serious issue puts him at risk. I also suspect financial pressures might be a factor, given the UFC's reputation for underpaying fighters. It's a tough situation, and I hope Weidman is compensated fairly. This could very well be his last bout. My prediction: Anders targets Weidman's compromised leg, securing a stoppage in rounds 2 or 3. Alternatively, he could dominate for a decision or even lock in a submission if the leg gives out and the fight goes to the mat. Either way, I'm picking Anders to win. Randy Brown vs Bryan battle. This matchup features Randy Brown's elusive counterstriking against Bryan Battle's relentless pressure and fight-ending power. It's a tough call on paper, but I predict Battle edges this out by decision. His forward pressure will likely keep Brown on the defensive, allowing Battle to accumulate points and rounds. Brown thrives on counter opportunities, but Battle's aggression could limit his effectiveness. Battle may also mix in takedowns to disrupt Brown's rhythm, though Brown's defensive skills should mitigate this. In a close contest, I see Battle landing heavier strikes, possibly hurting Brown, and convincing the judges with his volume and power. While either fighter could secure a TKO, I lean towards Battle's grit and pace. I predict this fight will likely go the distance, as both fighters rarely finish opponents. My pick is the more well-rounded decision merchant, Movsar Evloev, to secure the win. On the feet, I expect Evloev to outbox Sterling, who may resort to grappling if striking proves ineffective. However, Evloev's ability to get back up or even secure takedowns of his own could negate Sterling's ground game. While Evloev grappled effectively with Lopez, whose skill set lacks wrestling depth, Sterling, an American D3 wrestler and high-level black belt, poses a greater threat. If Sterling locks in a submission, he could pull off an upset. Evloev's best strategy would be to avoid grappling and focus on striking, where he holds a clear edge. Vicente Luque vs Themba Gorimbo. This is a significant test for Themba and could serve as a key indicator of how far he can go in the division. While Luque has faced some tough losses recently and hasn't appeared at his best, he is still relatively young and may very well be in the midst of his prime. On the other hand, Themba consistently shows signs of growth in his game, and the best version of him is yet to come. A fight of this magnitude could inspire him to deliver his best performance, and if he does, I believe he has a good chance of overcoming a slightly past his prime Luque, assuming Luque performs similarly to his recent outings. Themba should have no issues picking Luque apart at range, forcing him to walk into power shots. Additionally, he should be able to shrug off any grappling attempts from Luque. If Themba manages to hurt Luque, there's potential for a finish. However, I don't view Themba as a particularly powerful striker, so the more likely outcome is that he lands cleaner, more impactful shots and secures a unanimous decision victory. In the featured preliminary fight we have Dominick Reyes vs Anthony Smith, which is exciting because we may finally see Reyes back to the form he showed against John Jones. Injuries and the aftermath of that loss derailed him, but his performance against Jacoby showed glimpses of the dominant fighter we expected. At 34, Reyes has little room for error, but if he fights smart, I believe he'll finish Smith. Smith, at this stage, is unlikely to bring anything new. Reyes should handle Smith's attempts to grapple and dominate the striking exchanges. I predict a Reyes TKO or a decisive decision win. Nate Landwehr v Dooho Choi. This might be the best bar fight we see this year, and I'm all for it. While these chaotic matchups are tough to predict, I'm going with Nate Landwehr. Both have poor defense, but Choi seems worse. Choi is the more technical striker, but his chin is suspect. Despite showing toughness, the damage he's taken could catch up with him, as seen in his back-to-back KOs before his recent fights. I believe Nate has the power to crack Choi, potentially with an uppercut, and finish him on the ground. However, Choi has the tools to outstrike Nate at range, making this a true 50-50 brawl. Bryce Mitchell v Kron Gracie. This fight proves the Nurmagomedov name isn't the only one granting undeserved privileges in the UFC. Kron Gracie is lucky to be on the card, let alone in another undeserved main event. Several other fights are far more worthy of headlining. While the ground exchanges could intrigue fans, Kron's lack of well-rounded skills is glaring. He doesn't wrestle, resorting to guard pulling like Ryan Hall, a strategy that rarely works in modern MMA. Bryce Mitchell, though not elite, is more well-rounded. Mitchell should dominate on the feet and willingly engage on the ground, neutralizing Kron's grappling. A dominant unanimous decision for Mitchell seems likely, as Kron is tough but overmatched in all areas except grappling. Ciryl Gane v Alexander Volkov 2. Since their first fight, Volkov has significantly improved, finally utilizing his height, size, and reach effectively. Previously, he was too passive, likely influenced by the Lewis KO, but he now fights with renewed aggression. In the first bout, Gane picked apart a timid Volkov and dominated, but this time, Volkov is more dangerous, potentially mixing in grappling or capitalizing on Gane's defensive lapses, as seen against Tuivasa. However, Gane's fluid striking, distance management, and adaptability give him the edge. He can weather Volkov's early aggression, slow the pace, and outpoint him for another decision win, although I wouldn't be shocked if Volkov found a way to finish him this time. Shavkat Rakhmonov v Ian Garry. This welterweight clash is arguably the best fight on the card, and I can't wait for it. My prediction is Shavkat Rakhmonov finishing Ian Garry to continue his unstoppable surge in the division. While Ian Garry is highly skilled and versatile, I question his chin. Despite his defensive efforts, I believe Shavkat will land something significant. Garry will struggle to keep Shavkat at range and won't prevail in grappling exchanges against the superior wrestler. It's only a matter of time before Shavkat breaks him and secures the finish. That said, this fight shows Ian Garry's heart in taking on the division's monster, and win or lose, he deserves respect for stepping up. Alexandra Pantoja v Kai Asakura. Both fighters share a similar approach, aiming to overwhelm opponents with pressure while controlling the center. Pantoja is the superior grappler and wrestler, while Asakura is a more varied striker, relying on range and countering incoming opponents. However, Asakura tends to struggle against pressure grapplers, and Pantoja excels in this area. Pantoja will pressure Asakura, using his boxing to close the distance and set up takedowns. Asakura, returning after a year off and moving down in weight, could struggle against Pantoja's pace. I believe Pantoja will win by decision, though Asakura could potentially land a knee and end the fight if Pantoja becomes too comfortable. However, Pantoja's experience should help him avoid this mistake, and I'm confident he'll get the job done.